When we have kids in school, we want to help set them up for success, but sometimes they struggle with a specific subject, or they need help with homework, or maybe they're not getting challenged enough in class. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids covering math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL is designed to help them really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. As a student, Eleanor really struggles with math, and IXL Learning is the kind of product that really helps a child like her.
Don't miss out. 1 in 4 students in the U.S. are learning with IXL. IXL is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Happier with Gretchen Rubin listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXLlearning.com/happier. Visit IXLlearning.com/happier to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
Elizabeth, I can't decide which is my favorite, but I love Boca toothpaste. It has a really great flavor. I like Element, which is really ELAMINT, Ella Mint, but they also have a really interesting cocoa ginger, so I switch back and forth between those. And it has a magic ingredient of nanohydroxyapatite, which is a form of calcium that makes up 97% of our tooth enamel and 70% of our dentin. And because it comprises the primary foundation of teeth and bones, it's restorative for teeth and enamel.
Yeah, and there are kids' flavors that are extra delicious and offer the same efficacy and are safe to swallow, like orange cream, watermelon mint, and new strawberry mango. For a limited time, Boca is offering 15% off its best-selling toothpaste on Amazon and Boca.com with code HAPPIER15. That's HAPPIER15. Make the switch to non-toxic Boca for the whole family.
Hello and welcome to Happier, a podcast where we talk about how to be happier. This week, we'll talk about the value of finding a delight for each day of the week, and we'll talk about the power of learning from our mistakes. I'm Gretchen Rubin, a writer who studies happiness, good habits, human nature, secrets of adulthood. I'm in New York City in my little home office, and joining me today from Los Angeles is my sister Elizabeth Kraft. And Elizabeth, you and I often swap stories of our mistakes.
That's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer living in LA. And yeah, luckily I make a lot of mistakes, Gretchen, so I have plenty to talk to you about.
Yeah, but before we jump in, we have some updates, reminding everybody to get ready for our upcoming Happier Podcast book club episode, in which we will be talking about the novel Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. We are super excited for this conversation with Elizabeth Strout. So send us your questions and observations, and we will incorporate them into that discussion.
Yes, and also we are asking you for your gift-giving suggestions and also care package suggestions.
Everybody loves a great gift guide. Everybody loves a great care package gift guide. Keep them coming. These are so fun and so useful.
Yes.
And then we got an interesting question from Annie.
Yes, she said, I just finished listening to episode 503 where you talked about the hack of setting a demand to aid in creativity. Do you think that may work better for people who are more amenable to external expectations, upholders, obligers that lean upholder, and questioners that lean upholder? I tried something like that a few years ago when I was first trying to start my online business, and it kind of backfired for me. I'm a questioner who I think must lean to rebel more than upholder. I started posting pics of my jewelry on my personal page, both for input and for motivation, but I hated the idea that now I was obligated to other people, even when it was inconvenient for me, and it eventually just fizzled. I just decided to do my own thing and wait to post anything until it was up and running.
Well, I think this is a great point, and I think this is an excellent example of really evaluating whether a suggested tool or approach works for you.
Yes.
No tool fits every hand. And if somebody said, this is the way to do it, and it doesn't work for you, just say like, well, that doesn't work for me. Let me try it a different way. Realizing that there's no magic one-size-fits-all solution is the key thing. And I love the idea that Annie tried it. She realized that it did not work for her. It was not a helpful way for her to go about it. And so she tried a different way that worked for her. So excellent way to think about using your tendency and your self-knowledge to get yourself to meet your aim for yourself.
Yes. And Gretchen, we want to remind everybody to vote. It is so important.
Yes.
Even if you think you're in a place where your vote doesn't matter, remember all up and down the ticket, there's a lot of categories, not just the big ones. So you really want to vote. You can feel smug about it afterward.
Yes.
And wear your sticker or mail in your ballot, drop it off.
Yes.
The time is now.
The time is now. And make your plan.
Yes.
Really have a plan in place. When are you going to do it? Where is it? Figure all that stuff out. This is a way that we can put our values into the world. And one of the ways to make our lives happier is to put our values into the world. And this is a great way to do it. So,
yeah. And as you have mentioned, Gretchen, remind your kids who might be at college or just not living at home anymore to vote because they can need a nudge.
Right. They sort of have to figure it out. So, yes. Yeah. And this week, try this at home suggestion is to find a delight for each day of the week.
Well, this is fun. I like this idea. Yeah. It's a happier podcast, and this is a happy idea.
Yeah, and so the idea is let's look for the small delights of everyday life. We've talked about everyday luxuries where you look for things like you love the ice at that diner or you love the feel of that rug under your feet, just the little things that are the treats. And this is that category. But I think a lot of times there are things that happen on a certain day of the week that are only available, or that's when something will become available. And it's a great way to just elevate our experience because the fact is when we train our attention on something, we get more enjoyment from it. And if we label something as a small delight or as an everyday luxury, it actually begins to feel more luxurious. If somebody says, oh, this is the mug that feels so good in my hand, then you start thinking, wow, this mug really does have a nice feel in my hand. We sort of have to train our attention on something, but by doing that, then we elevate it in our mind.
Yeah, speaking of that, Gretch, our episode about everyday luxuries, that caused me to start using my nice China mugs on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, see, there you go. Okay, so when we go through the dates, that can be one of your things that makes the Saturday and Sunday special. Yeah, because a luxury becomes a luxury when we say to ourselves, oh, that is a luxury. And so you can identify something about each day. So for example, Jamie, my husband, he generally does not eat dessert, but every Saturday he will eat ice cream. And it's called Ice Cream Saturday, and our whole family knows it. And we'll be like, oh, today is Ice Cream Saturday. It just makes Saturday, even though I'm not eating the ice cream, it feels sort of playful and fun and celebratory. Like, oh, it's exciting. It's Ice Cream Saturday. And it reminds me of, you think in like olden times, it was wash on Monday, bake on Tuesday. They would have a task for every day of the week. And this is a pleasure. Maybe it's a five senses pleasure. You could even actually do like seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you want to do that, would be very organized. But even if you don't do it like that, you can just figure out, well, what are the pleasures of each day of the week and identify it and revel in it. So let's get into them.
You don't necessarily have to do anything different. It's just identifying what you like in each day of the week.
Exactly. And sometimes the delight might be determined by somebody else because you're enjoying something that somebody else is doing. And some are like, you're just picking which day that something happens, like Ice Cream Saturday. Okay, so Monday, Elizabeth, is there anything special, any delight for Monday for you?
Well, I got to say, Gretch, it's The Bachelor. Whenever The Bachelor's in season, it's on Monday night. And I always think, oh, it's Bachelor Monday. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, a TV show definitely can be a delight on a day. I remember that when I was in high school, one thing that I really loved about Monday was, because you know when you're in high school, it's so stressful to figure out what you're going to do on the weekend. And by Thursday and Friday, it was really starting to like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What are my plans? And so I always remember Monday morning thinking like, oh my gosh, now I'm just back in my routine and I have a few days before I have to start figuring out what I'm doing next weekend. And I still sort of have that feeling Monday morning like, Okay, now I'm sort of back in the routine.
You are a Monday person, Gretchen. I never thought of you that way, but you are such a Monday person.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a deep insight that I need to explore. I'm not sure what that means.
Is.
I don't think that feels very enticing, I have to say.
Well,
if you describe somebody, oh, she's a real Monday person, I don't know that that would incline me towards wanting to meet them.
Okay, well, I admire it in you greatly.
Okay, that's right. If you're my happiness guinea pig, I can be your Monday sister. How about Tuesday? What do you like about Tuesday?
Tuesday, I enjoy that every Tuesday at 9:30, Sarah and I talk to our manager, Diane, and I just enjoy that, catching up with her. We talk to her whether we have pressing business or not, so that's just our Tuesday thing.
Oh, that's nice. One of the things I like on Tuesday is Science Times and the New York Times. I am one of these old-fashioned people who gets a physical newspaper. Tuesday is when there's a Science Times section, and I enjoy that. So that's something I look forward to every Tuesday. See, these do not need to be large.
Yes.
How about Wednesday?
Wednesday, I love Wednesday because it's late start Wednesday for Jack. His school doesn't start till 9:30 on Wednesday, so it's just a little bit mellower.
Oh, that's nice.
Also, back in the TV realm, when it's in season, Survivor is on Wednesday night, and I love Survivor, and it's something we watch as a family, so I enjoy that.
That's nice. For me, Wednesday is the day that the Met is closed, and so I will usually walk in Central Park. Sometimes I walk in Central Park even other days, but often Wednesday is the day when I go for a long walk in Central Park, and that's always super enjoyable, so I like that about Wednesday. How about Thursday, Elizabeth? Do you have anything special for Thursday?
I got to figure out Thursday, Gretch.
For me, Elizabeth, Thursday is great because that's the day Happier in Hollywood drops, so I always listen to that Thursday morning, so
that's nice.
That makes Thursday special for me. Friday, got anything for Friday?
Well, Gretch, I'm going to say I'm a Friday person, so I just love that it's Friday, and I have that feeling of the week being over, so I'm a You're a Monday person. I'm a Friday person.
The truth is I am a Monday person, but I don't know that I embrace that identity. Okay, but it is true. And you are a Friday person. I think you are very Friday. For me, the nice thing about Friday, speaking of the Met, is the Met is open late on Friday. It's also open late on Saturday. For some reason, I never end up going late on Saturday, but I will often go late on Friday. And it's just a whole different vibe. And so that's super fun. I try to go late on Friday so that I can enjoy that. How about Saturday?
Well, Saturday, this is new for me, Gretchen, but Saturday I'm doing Orange Theory in the morning. Usually I have to go at like 5 p.m., but I like on Saturday I can go in the morning, and that's just nice.
Well, this reminds me of something that we talked about a couple months ago, which is do something in a different way. Do it at night instead of during the day, or do it at a different time of day, or go to a different location for something that you usually do as a way to just experience something in a different way that can be very enjoyable. For me, Saturday is often a reading day. I often do a lot of reading on Saturday, and so that's something that I love, several hours of reading. On Saturday or Sunday, this is a weekend thing for me. And what about Sunday?
Sunday, Gretch, that's my hiking day with my friends. I love doing Fryman Canyon Sunday morning. That is one of my favorite times of the week. So that is Sunday for me.
Well, and I have to think about what makes Sunday. I guess Saturday or Sunday or both are reading days, but I want to find something that's distinctive. So that's interesting. Well, let us know if you do try this at home and how finding a delight for each day of the week works for you, and what have you identified. If somebody says something that we identify with, it could become a delight for us too, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Finally, I would just say that the research shows that we really can change our experience by directing our attention. And so paying attention to these little pleasures of life actually can give us a boost in happiness and energy, because they help us tune into the positive aspects of our day. And that's going to make us happier. Let us know on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. Drop us an email at podcast@gretchenrubin.com. Or as always, you can go to the show notes. It's happiercast.com/505.
Coming up, we have a hotel room happiness hack. But first, this break. This show is sponsored by MIDI Health. Gretch, I hang out with a lot of women, and we have a lot of conversations. And one thing that every woman shares is that eventually she's going to go through menopause and perimenopause. And people talk about the hot flashes, the insomnia, the brain fog, the moodiness, the weight gain. Well, MIDI clinicians are menopause experts equipped to support you with safe, effective, FDA-approved medications, as well as supplements, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health guidance.
All their services are covered by insurance, and they're conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and 24/7 messaging. When we need help, we want to know that we can come out of an experience feeling heard, with a plan to start feeling better, with people who are really experts in their field. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
All right, Gretch, we are back with a happiness hack, and this is something that you discovered the hard way.
Okay, so if you are traveling and you are leaving your hotel room for the last time, be sure to keep your key with you. Because sometimes you think, well, I don't really need to worry about my key since I'm leaving my hotel room. But then what happened to me is the door shut behind me and I realized that I had left something sitting on the counter. And if I had just had my key with me, it would have taken but a moment to open up the door and go back in. But because I didn't, because I had left my key inside, I had to let go and say, I'm checking out, but I need a key because I left something in. And because I was getting ready to leave for the airport and everything, it was all fine. It didn't take long, but it felt more stressful than it needed to. And so now I'm just thinking to myself, just keep that key until you've totally cleared the hotel experience.
Yes. And it's very easy to drop the key in the lobby. They usually either have a box or you can just leave it on the counter. So it's just as easy, really, as leaving it in the room.
Well, and I think if they have that box or something, it's actually helpful for the hotel. I don't 100% understand how all of their operations work. But so it's like, if you can do that, that's really helpful to the hotel. If not, it can be helpful for you. It's just one of these things. It can save you a lot of irritation without much effort if you just think, okay, it's just worth hanging on to my key. Because sometimes I was like, I'm free from the key now. But it's like, well, no, are you really?
Yes, it's adjacent to always look behind you when you leave a restaurant.
It's 1,000% adjacent to that. And if you look behind you before you leave the hotel room, then you would not need this. But it's just better to have belt and suspenders, I think.
Yes.
And now for a know yourself better question. This is one that comes from my own experience.
Yes, Gretchen. So what is it?
Okay. So here's the question to ask yourself. Do you go into shock the way I do? So I would say that I have realized about myself that I go into shock either when I get a lot of feedback. Let's say I get my edit letter after a book draft, or my agent reads a draft and gives me feedback, or I get a big scary assignment. You can write this piece for us, or something comes up where there's a big challenge for me, and I allow myself to go into shock.
So what does that mean for you?
What it means is that I don't expect myself to take action right away. Sometimes I don't even expect myself to read it. If I'm like, okay, here's my multi-page edit letter, maybe I'm just like, it's here. I'm going to go into shock and I'll come back to it later. Or sometimes I'm like, I'll just read it and I'll just let it be in my mind, but then I'm going to walk away. I never expect myself to respond in the same day. Part of it is also I'm such a morning person that I know if there's something that it's challenging or difficult for me to deal with, it's always better if I do it first thing in the morning. So part of it is also waiting to deal with it when I'm super fresh in the morning. Because I used to sort of press myself or feel like, well, I'm procrastinating or I should jump right in because this is something that's big and challenging. But it made it really draining. It made me really anxious in a way that meant that I wasn't really doing good work.
Yeah.
And there's something to me comforting that's like, it's predictable. It's like, oh, I just go into shock.
Right.
And it's not even bad shock. It's just, whoa, this is happening. And then I'll deal with it. It just feels like it's part of how I respond in a situation. So I don't get rattled if I feel rattled, because I'm like, of course I'm going to feel rattled because I go into shock. And then this is how I handle it.
Well, I very much relate to this. Sarah and I often are in a position of getting notes. That's like you, a very big part of our job.
Yes.
And we just have to take a minute, really a day like you, to let them settle in. So we never try to unless it's very small, we don't try to write the day that we get notes. We may talk through notes.
Yeah.
We'll take a half an hour, then we'll get on the phone and maybe talk for a couple hours about the notes, but we don't try to actually dive in because we know that we're going to do much better once it's all processed. And oftentimes we'll hear notes that seem overwhelming and how could we possibly do this? And I don't see a solution.
Yes.
And then one will come once we've calmed down or just taken a minute. But it reminds me of the first time Sarah and I got notes on a pilot we had written, Women's Murder Club. When we got the notes, I mean, we went home and called the executive and said, well, I think you should probably get someone else because, I mean, obviously nobody likes this and we don't know what to do and we can't do this. And the executive was like, well, this is really just the process. It's fine. And we were like, oh, it's fine. Okay, fine.
Okay.
But we were in such shock.
Yes.
Because we weren't used to it that we were like, run, but now, we would never think that. We would just say, okay, you know what? We'll start over. Nothing phases us at this point.
Well, it reminds me of your thing about you think, oh, I can't do it. It's not possible. And then you figure it out. I know about myself, similar to the fact that I go into shock. And I tell anybody who works with me, I say, I have to say no before I can say yes. If people suggest something to me, I'm also like, oh, I can't do that. That's not possible. And then a little bit later, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. And so I just say to people, I will often say no before I could say yes. And you could say, well, Gretchen, if you know that about yourself, why don't you just skip that stage? And the truth be told, I try, but for some reason, each time I'm like, oh no, this time really is a no. And then I'm like, oh no, I can say yes. So it's a pattern that I do not seem to be able to transcend. But again, it's about knowing ourselves and being able to understand how we will respond. But Elizabeth, I am curious about you and Sarah because what's one of your lines of wisdom? It's something like, writing television is taking criticism. That is the job, or I forget how you say it, but it's such a huge part. But how do you manage the emotions of it? So does taking that break help you? Because for me, a lot of it is managing the emotions of, I screwed up. Am I good enough? I just need to take a beat and be like, I can do this.
Yeah, I think that just comes from experience. We used to be very emotional about it, really get upset. And now we just don't take anything personally.
Yes.
We may think it's great. If they don't like it, we don't then not think it's great. We just think, okay, well, that difference of opinion.
Sure.
We just don't take it personally. And that really helps. The shock.
Right.
But I will also say, Gretchen, all know yourself better questions. This is also helpful for knowing about those around you.
Yes.
Right. So if you know people around you, like you're saying, you tell people, hey, this is how I am.
Yeah.
If you see that your partner or your boss, your intern, whoever it may be, is somebody like this, your kid, knowing that will keep you from then getting on them too quickly. Like let them feel their shock and then go back to it.
Yeah. And one thing that I do too, and this is part of going into shock, or if I'm taking time with like a lot of notes, is I will read through usually whatever it is, because I do have this belief, and Elizabeth, do you agree, that your unconscious mind, like while you're sleeping or in the back of your mind without you even knowing, is starting to work out solutions. I will allow myself to see what needs to be done, even though I would not ask myself to start addressing it, because I'm like, oh, maybe this is a shortcut and my unconscious mind will fix this for me while I'm going about my business today. I'll wake up tomorrow with some ideas. And I have to say, that often is the case.
Yes, 100%. So that's why Sarah and I always go through notes and start talking, even if we are feeling overwhelmed, because oftentimes the start of that conversation will then the next day lead to a solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let us know if you go into shock, if you know what this feeling is, and how have you used that to help yourself work better or how to know other people better. It'll be really interesting to see, Elizabeth, if other people experience what we experience this way.
Yes.
And now for listener answers. And this is very appropriate for everything we've been talking about this episode, which is the idea that we can all learn from each other and we can learn from other people's mistakes. So we are asking for listener answers to the question, what is a mistake that you've made that taught you an important lesson that you would like to share so that other people don't make that mistake? So what we're hoping is that we'll get a lot of examples of mistakes so that we don't make that mistake. For instance, I left my hotel room without my key, but I forgot and left my phone on the counter. Don't make that mistake. Maybe I can save you from making that mistake by telling you that that is a mistake that somebody made. How about you, Alyssa? What are some mistakes that you've made that others could learn from?
Well, one mistake I've made, Gretchen, is setting my alarm for PM, not AM.
Ooh.
And I've done that. And I tell you, though, I did it once. And now I check every night to make sure it's AM and not PM.
Yes, that's a good one. Yep. Sometimes just one time is all you need.
Gretch, here's a mistake I made that I don't think is a common mistake, but a version of it may be a common mistake. Right after I had Jack, I had to go to, a doctor's appointment follow-up, as one does. And when I got to the doctor, I realized that I had put stretch mark oil in my hair instead of mousse or whatever, because I was so out of it as a new mom.
Right.
So now I don't know that's, the stretch mark oil may not be common, but using a product in the wrong way is definitely a mistake we make.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I did that very recently. And I think particularly if you're traveling because things aren't in their usual places. And so you just start reaching for something that's on the counter in the place that you're used to a product being. So I was traveling and I went to brush my teeth. And instead of putting toothpaste on my toothbrush, I squeezed cortisone cream onto my toothbrush, which, is in a tube. I mean, you would obviously know the difference. I picked up a tube. It was a travel size. So I full on had it in my mouth and was brushing my teeth before I realized what it was. So yeah, switching products. Switching products is probably something that a lot of people do. I mean, other things, let's just remind ourselves, make sure that you are not texting in the wrong thread. Double check that. Double check your reply alls. Yes. We've all done it. Not keeping your phone charged. These happen a lot, but it's good to be reminded.
Yes. Another one, Gretchen, a mistake I'm sure we've all made is make sure you have the cords that are associated with your devices, because of course it can't be universal. Every device needs its own particular cord.
Well, you know how I always talk about my Zabec or XEBEC monitor extender that gives me 2 extra monitors when I'm traveling. It has 3 cords. And sure enough, one time I left for a week and I only brought 2 of the cords with it, not the 3rd cord. So the whole thing was useless. So check your cords. Another thing, when I was traveling, I was at a dinner and they served coffee after dinner. And I thought, well, naturally, if you're serving coffee at 9:30 at night, they're just going to automatically give everybody decaf. And so I drank a cup of coffee. And then I was like, you know what? Before I have a second cup, let me double check that. And they were like, oh, no, this is caffeinated. Do you want us to bring you decaffeinated?
Ooh.
Okay, so always check. Don't assume.
Yes, Gretch, I have made that mistake myself with the caffeinated coffee at night.
And just the final note about this is one of the reasons that this is powerful is that research shows that we really do learn from hearing other people's mistakes. And I remember that when I was a summer associate in law school, we were a summer associate at this big law firm in New York City, and they gave us a training day where they were telling us all the things that we shouldn't do. The way that they did it, and they said, we're going to give you examples of the rules and how people have messed up these rules and why that ended very badly for them. Not because we want to paint these dark pictures for you, but this will help you understand what this mistake could look like in practice. Because sometimes somebody tells you something and you're like, oh, I would never do it. I would never hit reply all in an email. What kind of chucklehead would do that? But then,
it happens.
It's surprisingly easy to do it. So sometimes when you hear somebody saying, this is how it happened for me, it helps that lesson be learned more easily. Now, true, a stumble may prevent a fall. And sometimes we have to make a mistake in order to learn a lesson. But it's much better if we can learn from other people's stumbles instead of our own.
Yes, indeed.
So let us know. Give us your mistakes. Let us learn from you.
Okay, Gretch, coming up, I give myself a dog demerit. But first, this break.
As a parent, you always want to set your child up for success. So when they're struggling in school or they need help with homework, you try your best to step up. But sometimes you might not be equipped to answer. And it's better to leave that to the experts from IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL can help your child really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. Powered by advanced algorithms, IXL gives the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. And when you sign up, one subscription gets you everything you need for all the kids in your home, from pre-K to 12th grade. IXL is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S., with 1 in 4 students across the country using the program. So don't wait any longer. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXLlearning.com/audio. Visit IXLlearning.com/audio to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. As a parent, you always want to set your child up for success. So when they're struggling in school or they need help with homework, you try your best to step up. But sometimes you might not be equipped to answer. And it's better to leave that to the experts from IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL can help your child really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. Powered by advanced algorithms, IXL gives the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. And when you sign up, one subscription gets you everything you need for all the kids in your home, from pre-K to 12th grade. IXL is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S., with 1 in 4 students across the country using the program. So don't wait any longer. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXLlearning.com/audio. Visit IXLlearning.com/audio to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you love true crime or comedy, celebrity interviews or news, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. And guess what? Now you can call them on your auto insurance too with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Okay, Elizabeth, it's time for Demerits and Gold Stars, and I would say that we are in a run of repeat demerits. What's happening to us? Why can't we just get ourselves fixed and perfect and move on?
Oh, I know. Someday we will be perfect.
Someday we'll be perfect. There will be no demerits, only gold stars. But this week, it has not happened yet. What is your demerit? What's a mistake that we can learn from?
My demerit, Gretch, is corgi related. We have 2 corgis, Nacho and Daisy, and I have not been walking them enough. I really want to be walking them every day.
Yeah.
And I haven't been. And I was thinking about it because I knew I was giving myself this demerit. And I've realized partly it's because it's getting darker earlier. And so I was walking them a lot at like 7 p.m., but now it's dark at 7 p.m. So I really need to try to start doing it earlier, but it's just not as convenient.
So my question, is this for their benefit or your benefit or both?
I would say mostly for their benefit because I am exercising quite a bit, but it's for my benefit too, but mostly theirs. And by the way, Adam also walks them, but again, we're kind of more likely to do it if we do it together. We'll say, hey, let's walk the dogs.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just need to do it more.
Well, it's an interesting example. If you start doing something at a certain time and that works, you have to reinvent your vision of your evening or something because it has to be slotted in a different place. So I think this is a perfect example of how giving yourself a demerit. Now you're like, okay, the old time isn't working for this season, so what's the new time going to be? Rather than just day after day thinking, oh, I missed my chance. Yeah.
Oh, wow, it got dark.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Yes, right.
And we used to walk them at night a lot, but now just with the coyotes and other things in the neighborhood, we're just not wanting to walk them in the dark. I mean, it used to be we'd do it at 11 p.m.
Oh.
But now we're really trying to do it, when it's light out.
Oh.
But anyway, Gretchen, what is your gold star?
Okay, I'm getting the gold star to some random people that were on the street in Portland, Maine. So I was in Portland, Maine at this little writers conference that was super, super fun. And we were walking at nighttime to dinner. And these people came running up to us and they were like, it's the Northern Lights. It's the Northern Lights. Look, look, look. And they were so excited to tell us. And of course, we were thrilled. It's interesting. With the Northern Lights, at least where we were, you could look up in the sky and see them. It was like a dark purple. So it did look very different. It didn't look the way I pictured the Northern Lights, but I could tell that there was something different with the sky. But I have to say, this is why I wrote Life in 5 Senses. I have to really be consciously trying to tune into my environment. And I was chatting with friends, so I would never have noticed the difference in the sky. sky. But the funny thing is if you looked at it through your phone, because the camera in the phone can take in so much more light than the eye can, it was very uncanny and magical. When you looked at it through the phone, you could see bright purple, vivid pinks, and it was super bright. And so it was very dramatic. And of course, they're really there. So it's just sort of like you're able to see more than you could see with the naked eye. But we would not have known it if these people hadn't said to us, hey, stop, look, it's the Northern Lights. And this is a bucket list thing for me,
Yes.
especially since I'm such a huge fan of Philip Pullman and his books, which in the United States, the series or whatever you call it, we refer to it as His Dark Materials. My impression is that in the UK, they might call it Northern Lights. There's some relationship to the Northern Lights, and the Northern Lights play a big role. And so that just got me very enchanted with the idea of Northern Lights. But I always thought I was going to have to travel to some far-flung place and make a special effort. And so it was just thrilling to me that as part of this conference, I got to see the Northern Lights. So I was so happy that those people took the time and the effort to make sure we didn't overlook the fact that we could see them.
Gold star to the people on the street.
Yes. And the resource for this week. Okay, I have this new great thing. It's like a great stocking stuffer if you're looking for something like that. It is the Happiness Hacks card deck. It's a deck of cards. It has 104 different prompts for little things that you can do to make yourself happier, like go for a short walk or write a haiku or make a list of your top 5 movies or whatever it might be. And this is to gamify it. And if you need a quick happiness boost and you just want to give yourself a little idea, something you can do in less than 5 minutes, it's super fun. It was really, really delightful to come up with all these prompts. And that's available now at happiercast.com/happiness deck. And especially for people who like gamifying things, I think that they'll really like this idea that they can just deal themselves out some happiness.
Love it.
And Elizabeth, what are we reading? What are you reading?
I'm still reading Swan Song by Ellen Hilderbrand.
And I am reading Martyr by Kavi Akbar. And that's it for this episode of Happier. Remember to try this at home. Find a delight for each day of the week. Let us know if you tried it and if it worked for you.
Thank you to our executive producer, Chuck Reed, and everyone at Odyssey. Get in touch. Gretchen's on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok at Gretchen Rubin, and I'm on Instagram and Threads at Liz Craft.
And if you like the show, please be sure to tell a friend. You can just email or text an episode to a friend. That is a great way to send somebody something that you think that they would enjoy or find interesting. Enjoy the podcast. Tell your friends fast. That's your rhyming reminder.
Until next week, I'm Elizabeth Craft.
And I'm Gretchen Rubin. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward.
Gretchen, it's so cool that you saw the Northern Lights.
Yeah, have you ever seen them, Elizabeth?
No, I'm dying to.
It's really very dramatic and cool, I have to say. From the Onward Project.